following announcement has been paid for by the new Howell order.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here. Commanders Nightly News. I've told you, host Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So I got this DM to me at least 20 times today. Robert Griffin III on his RG3 and the Ones podcast had Sam Howell on. And it was a lengthy interview, probably about 55 minutes or so. And they talked about a myriad of topics, ranging from Sam's dislike for beef to, and we've heard that one, that's everybody's favorite non-football topic with Sam is, how can you not like, beef? And so I know he's sick and tired of talking about it. You can hear it every time it gets brought up. He's like, oh shit, here we go again with this bullshit. But he knows the drill. He knows that anytime he does something with someone outside of the local media, he's going to have to talk about it. They're going to bring it up. It's just what it is. Because it's such an anomaly in today's society. But I deal with the same thing being a vegan. A lot of people are, oh my God, how can you be a vegan? And so people are fascinated by things like that. Whatever the case may be. Ranging from his beef with beef, as Robert Griffin III phrased it, to him being a franchise quarterback and, what he feels about Bieniemy and Terry and, Rivera and going all the way back to his first career start in week 18 and how that came about. And so it was a lot of different things that Robert touched on. And I thought he asked a lot of good questions, a lot of questions that forced Sam to have to answer them in a way that our media would not ask him because they can't. There's a line that they try to toe but not cross. And then, also a lot of times the local beat reporters, they have stories they're working on. So the questions that they ask are angled towards the story that they're working on so that they have some quotables and a bit of fodder for their column that they're writing, whatever the case may be. So Robert has no, vested interest in a column, or he's not working for some entity and needs to ask pointed questions to get a certain answer. He's just going to ask the questions that most of us as fans want to know. And thought he did a pretty good job. And I think most of us who watched Robert Griffin III, if we can just veer to Robert for a second, I think most of us knew this guy was going to be great as a member of the media. I don't think any of us ever doubted that. He speaks eloquently. He's a very smart and bright guy. He gets it, which is all the more reason why his tenure here was frustrating, because he's smart enough to know right from wrong, and he did a lot of things. And again, he was immature. He was young. Those things happen. It sucks that they happened the way that they did, because I bet you if he had to do it all over again, he'd do some things differently. With that said, it was funny because one of the questions he asked Sam was about, or one of the statements he made to Sam was about how he gained more respect for Patrick Mahomes with the whole ordeal with the offsides and Kadarius Toney and what he said to Josh Allen after the game and having to come back and apologize and all that stuff. But he said, what I gained the most respect with Patrick Mahomes for is the fact that throughout all of this being this season, they're 8-5. They've lost a bunch of games that they're not accustomed to losing. It's different this year. They're not the same Chiefs. I've been trying to tell people that prior to the trade deadline, they need to do something at receiver. I could see this coming a mile away. Like, anybody that's been watching the Chiefs knows what that offense is supposed to look like. And they usually have a receiver they can go to. They don't have that guy. And so I said they needed to go get somebody. They went and got Mecole Hardman. Obviously, that hasn't been enough. And the rest is history. And Robert said he could blame his receivers, but he hasn't. He says, as a quarterback, you take the blame. all the time for everything, even when it's not your fault. You get all the praise when you win, you get all the blame when you lose, and we know that's not the case. You're not solely responsible for a victory, just like you're not wholly responsible for a loss, but that's just the way it goes in this league. And the fact that, his receiver, Valdez Scantling, didn't catch that pass against Philadelphia. And again, there would have been a lot of time left on the clock had he caught that pass. There was no guarantee they would have won the game. But you can't drop that pass. They had some, drops in other games that have cost them, that have put them in some tough spots. They had the pass interference no call against the Packers. And so, like Robert said, that frustration from Mahomes wasn't just about the call. It was about the season as a whole and all the things that have gone wrong, and it kind of just all came out at once. And he said he's never blamed anybody else. He's never pointed the finger at his receivers, and I've gained respect for him. And I thought about that, and I'm like, I'm listening to Robert, and again, I told you guys, I think this was 3 or 4 years ago, I said, eventually he's going to grow mentally, and he's going to get it. And it took a little while, and I think it probably took him being out of the league. Because even when he was with Baltimore towards the tail end of his career, and remember he got that COVID start, and he was awful, and that was Baltimore's sign, all right, we got to get rid of this kid. We got to move on from him, and we got to get us a real backup quarterback. And that was the last time he played in the NFL. He still was delusional. The comments after that game, my guys, and this, that, and the third, he still didn't get it. And now it feels like he gets it. And it was kind of ironic because he's saying he respects Mahomes for that, but he didn't do that during his career. He threw guys under the bus. We remember after the Philadelphia game, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, can't win games when the players around him don't, make plays, right? We remember that press conference. That prompted Jay Gruden to then go off and, eviscerate him in a press conference, the likes of which we've never seen a head coach do a starting quarterback. So it's funny to hear him say that. But Sam has been the model of consistency at the podium. And that's refreshing for me because I, again, still have PTSD from Robert Griffin III. And I see the growth in Robert. I have seen it. I hear it when he speaks. He talked about a quarterback room, and Sam had talked about the quarterback room that he was in his rookie season with Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke, and how those guys helped, mentor him and really showed him the ropes, showed him how to be a pro. And it really was a huge impact on him. They had a profound impact on him, and he talks about it all the time. And we all know the story about Heineke in Week 18 telling the team, hey, let Sam have it, right? Pretty much. When they weren't going to play him. And he told Robert, hey, I wasn't getting any reps in my rookie season, which Robert was acting like that was a big deal. That's how it works in the NFL. Most of the reps go to the one, and pretty much all the reps go to the one, and your scout team is run by the two, the second quarterback. For most teams. Some teams might give their backup a few reps and let the third string quarterback, if they have one on the roster, run the scout team, but most teams aren't doing that. So, Robert was shocked, like, oh my God, you didn't get any reps in your rookie season? He's like, nah, not really, only when Carson was out. And we know Carson was out for about a 4 or 5 week stretch with that broken finger. And, Sam made a valid point, and we talked about this. Had Sam not gotten that Week 18 start, shout out to Taylor Heineke, I don't know if he would have been the starter this year. I don't know if he would have gotten the opportunity because there wouldn't have been that small sample size that leaves you wanting more, which is what he gave us and he teased us with at the end of the 2022 season, that prompted them to say, you know what, we think we got our guy, and we just gonna roll with Sam in 2023. He talked about having to get the ball to Terry more. And it's the same answer he's given at the press conferences. He didn't say anything different. But I like that Robert probed about that relationship with Terry, because it is an important one. And I think Sam understands he needs to get it to Terry more. I just don't think he knows how to go about it. And that's part of the growing pains of being a rookie. Is this is how they're teaching you to do it in practice. This is how they're coaching you to do it. This is how they're telling you to go through your progressions. If Terry's the third read in that progression and they give you a look where your first two reads are supposed to be open, you're not going to get to Terry, even though Terry may be open, you know? And so that's the dilemma, and that's where the coaching comes into play, is you shouldn't be putting your young quarterback. Like, if Sam were in his third or fourth year, then there would be no excuse, because you're at the point now where if you've been in an offense for 3-4 years, like Jordan Love's been in the same offense his entire career in the NFL. Now, he hasn't played, doesn't have a ton of experience, but he knows the offense like the back of his hand. He knows where everyone's supposed to be, so he can do whatever the hell he wants, because he's not thinking about, all right, well, where's my 3 at? You know, where's my check down? Like, he doesn't have to think about it, because he's been in the same offense for 3 straight years, right? Or 4 years, rather. Whereas Sam has been in 2 different offenses in his 2 years in the league, and so he's still learning the nuances of this particular playbook. He's probably going to have to learn a new one next year again, and so it's hard for you to go off script or to break free of what is being coached to you when you're still just trying to learn it yourself. And you're a young guy. You can't go off script. You don't have that autonomy yet to say, to hell with what coach told me to do, I'm throwing the ball to Terry. Right? You don't have that autonomy yet. So if they're coaching you to go through your progressions, 1, 2, Terry's your third read, and 1 or 2 are open, they expect you to throw the football to 1 or 2. They don't expect you to get to your third read, because they're going to ask you, what the hell are you doing? You're reading this out 1, 2, 3 in your progression. 1's open. There's no way you should be getting to your third read. He's open right now. Get it to him, right? That's how it's being coached. And that's the problem, is that there are too many plays where Terry isn't the primary read. There's too many plays where Terry isn't the guy that's the focal point of the offense getting the football. And that's where we go back to Eric Bieniemy. A lot of people are trying to deflect from EB and say, oh, you know, EB this, EB that. He's getting, a bad deal, this, that, the third. And no. He's getting what he deserves. Because when he came here, he told us, and I do respect that. He told us from the jump, I don't give a shit about nobody's stats. Don't care about it. I'm just trying to collectively drag our asses across the finish line. I don't care about nobody's stats. He said that, and he meant it. And if you're winning, we'll ride. But when you start losing and your best players aren't touching it, now I got a problem. And that's where we are right now. So Sam knows what he needs to do. I just don't think he knows how to go about it. He's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because this is how they're coaching it. And Terry's over here running, as he said, wind sprints or cardio back. He's getting cardio, right? Which is what I said about Jahan, maybe 3 weeks prior. Like, Jahan's just out here getting cardio in, 81 snaps and only, 1 target, no catches. Wow. All right. Great job. So, Sam's going to speak highly of Ron because Ron gave him his shot. He's going to speak highly of EB because that's the guy that, was coaching him this year. And they've kind of fostered a relationship, those two have. And so he's going to speak highly of those guys. I expect him to. And he did in that Robert Griffin III interview. He talked about his Korean heritage. We've heard that before. He talked about his energy drink. We've heard that before. He talked about getting drafted. We've heard those conversations before. And he talked about his experience at the Combine with Robert Griffin III and how, the expectation was he was going to go. I think he felt like he's probably going to go in the second round. I don't think he thought he was going in the first round. The year before, he would have gone in the first round. Remember, Sam Howell was, and we don't have to go through this again. We don't need to do that. at the end of the day, it was a cool interview. I don't think I learned anything new about Sam that I didn't already know. They asked him about any cool nicknames. He hasn't really heard any. He said Wolf, which is it's basic, but if you're gonna do that, you might as well go Airwolf, right? I like Airwolf better than just Wolf, right? But whatever. I didn't really learn anything new per se. The only thing that I'll say is that Sam believes he's going to be the franchise quarterback here, or at least get an opportunity next year. And the thing that I like, we heard this yesterday from him. We heard it again today. And I'm pretty sure that this episode was pre-recorded probably 3-4 days ago. So what we heard yesterday and what he said with Robert Griffin III, they're one and the same in the fact that he knows he needs to win. I talked about this yesterday. He's self-aware. He keeps talking about not knowing where we are in the playoffs and this, that, and the third, but we're just going to try to win every game. They know that we're eliminated. Nobody's playing for the playoffs at this point. That ship has sailed. But he knows the more they lose, the closer they get to the top of the draft, the less likely it is he's the starting quarterback of the future. He may start next year. They could draft a guy and he could still be the starter next year if they just determine that guy's not ready to start right away. But the likelihood is if you draft a guy number 2 or 3 overall, he's starting day one. The days of letting a number 2 or 3 overall pick sit and learn and be able to kind of process everything, those days are gone, right? So the assumption is we keep losing, and we end up with the 4th or 3rd or even the 2nd pick. I decrease my chances exponentially of being the starter here long term. So he knows what he has to do. Can he achieve it? Something that has been interesting this season for me was Robert said when he saw Sam at the combine, he was like, man, you throw a beautiful deep ball. That has been probably the worst facet of his game this year. And that was one of the things that I was most impressed with him coming out of North Carolina as well. And we saw the deep ball last year to Terry in the Cowboys game, and I just thought there was going to be plenty of those to come. And we really haven't seen him connect on that deep ball this year. To me, that is the next big step in his maturation. Obviously not turning the football over, being more consistent. Those things will come with time, better protection. I don't even want to say better play calling, because I don't think that has anything to do necessarily with the inconsistency from him. I think the protection and just being more comfortable, knowing that you're not going to get hit, knowing you can step up into the pocket and deliver the football. These are things that I think are on his mind when he's back there, and I think it is affecting him. But when you get a chance in this league to hit a deep ball like the one he had against the Bears with De'Ami Brown down the field, you got to hit it. Can't miss. He had a chance against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Can't miss. He hit the one against Buffalo. He hit 2 against the Giants. Dropped 1 in the bucket where Terry took a shot, but it was a dime in that first Giants game. Then the one right before the end of the 3rd quarter where Terry thought he wasn't touched, got up and ran into the end zone, but he was ultimately down. There are times when you see it, like, damn, that was beautiful. And then there are times when you go, come on, Sam, bro, you can't miss that. The New England one to Jahan, that's the thing of beauty. It's like it was dropped out of the sky. It just got to be more consistent. I think he's thrown a flat deep ball this year. And the one to Terry against New England where he's running across the field, and if he just leads him up the field into the end zone away from the defender so that other corner on the other side can't get back into play, and that Jabril Peppers, the safety, can't get back into play, it's a touchdown, right? But all in all, he talked about the experience that he's gained, how he's getting more and more comfortable, and he talked about how he can build a rapport with Terry and the guys on the team with more time. That'll happen over time. The question is, are you going to get that time? And that's what he's got to be playing for these final 4 games of the season, is the ability to buy more time. I will say this. He talked about his welcome to the NFL moment. I am shocked at how players don't have better recollection of things that, like, I guess because we're fans and we live, eat, breathe, sleep this stuff. We're all over it. Like, he couldn't even recollect the score. That's crazy to me. This wasn't from 4 years ago. And I could probably tell you a score in a game from 4 years ago. But I guess as players, it's on to the next one. They don't dwell on it like we do as fans. We lose a game, we mull over it for 3-4 days straight, and then we move on to the next game. They don't have a choice but to move on to the next game. I guess that's why maybe they don't hold on to it as much as we do. Like, bro, you lost 37-3. Like, how don't you remember the score? But that's 95% of the NFL players don't remember scores, statistics, any of that stuff. They just know they lost by a lot. That's crazy to me. And he's like, that was his welcome to the NFL moment. They start 2-0. He's feeling really good. And then he's like, I threw like 4 picks and we got destroyed by the Bills. And that was like my moment where I had to realize, if you're not prepared, and he's like, I'm not saying we weren't prepared or that, the moment was too big or that we got big-headed or, we were smelling ourselves or any of that. Just, we came in, we thought we were ready, and we weren't. And we got blitzed. And when he said that, I was thinking, you were 2-0, bro. Let that sink in. You're 4-9. Like, you've lost 9 out of your last 11 games. Like, I was in my phone, scrolling through my phone the other day with my kids, and the video that I did coming out of the bar in South Beach came up on my phone, where I was so excited running out of that bar. I felt like I had just stole, because the Broncos went down, got the Hail Mary, didn't get the 2-point conversion. Juice clearly was pass interferencing that receiver, and they had a wide open receiver on the opposite field that Russell Wilson just never, gave a look to. And so that game easily could have gotten tied, and if it would have, we would have lost that game in overtime. You can't collapse the way that we did at the end of that game and expect to win in overtime. So I felt like we had stole a victory. After feeling confident that we were going to win, then it was like we held on for dear life, and I ran out of that bar, and I was all excited, and golly, that feels like an eternity ago. We were 2-0 and riding high. What in the hell happened to this season? Jesus. Anyway, Sam's a good dude, and I think the future's bright for him. I'll say this last thing. They were going back and forth with quarterback, and this is another thing that kills me with players. It's like they just have no idea of what's going on in the league, man. Like, they asked Sam, we've heard this before, Sam's idol, the quarterback he emulated growing up, was Drew Brees. Makes a ton of sense. They're, relatively the same height. The games, as Sam said, are not similar. They're 2 different quarterbacks, totally different quarterbacks. But Sam tries to emulate him in the pocket because Drew Brees' pocket work is among the best in NFL history. So that's a great guy to emulate. But they played a little quarterback game. Like, you take a quarterback, I take a quarterback. So Robert Griffin III, had Sam take a quarterback first, and then he would take one, and they went through like 5 different rounds or whatever. And Sam's first quarterback, obviously, as anybody would be, was Patrick Mahomes. So Robert goes to a former teammate of his, Lamar Jackson, as his first quarterback. To me, the next quarterback has to be Joe Burrow, but he goes Jalen Hurts, which is not a bad pick. Okay, cool. You see him twice a year. You've seen him twice this year. He's killed you both times, outdueled you both times. You put up ridiculous numbers in both games, and he still found a way to win. I get it. So then Robert says Dak Prescott. I'm like, so nobody's going to name Joe Burrow. And then this was the one that chapped my ass. Sam says Jared Goff. And you can tell he ran out of names. He had to. And this is the thing that what happens when you get put on the spot, because I hate being put on the spot, because when someone asks you to make a list or ask you a specific question that forces you to think on the fly and you don't, have a chance to kind of write things, you're going to forget somebody. You're going to forget. I do it all the time. And that's why I say I hate when people do that, because I'm like, you're going to make me forget someone. And then somebody's like, how could you forget such and such? Because I did, right? And then Robert took some, quarterback that I was like, okay, you guys are all over the place. And then Sam brings it back with Joe Burrow, and I think they both forgot about him because he's hurt, out of sight, out of mind. And so Sam said Joe Burrow, and then Robert was like, okay, I'm going to let you have that one, even though he's hurt. And I think that was Robert's way of saying, shit, how did I forget about him? And I'm like, first of all, how did you get that far down the list before you got to Joe Burrow? And then Sam gets to Brock Purdy at the end, and I'm like, I think that name should have been a little bit further. Like, you should never have named Jared Goff. Let's just start there. But I digress. Anyway, it was a fun interview. I don't think I learned anything about Sam that I didn't already know. Everybody was sending it to me as if I was going to learn something. I just thought it was a cool interview, cool interaction between the two. Robert's in his element, as you can tell, and none of us are surprised by that. And Sam is a cool guy. We know that, again, nothing he said. I already knew about his Korean heritage. We knew about his sports drink that he's a part of the company of. We've seen, all these different spots that he's done. We know about him not eating red meat, or not a ton of beef, at least. And, we know about how he feels about Terry and Eric Bieniemy and Ron Rivera and Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke. And we know all these things. So nothing that was said there was new information. It was just reiterating what we already know, which is Sam's a good dude, and we want him to be the guy, but he's going to have to make sure that he makes it abundantly clear that he's the guy. And I don't think he's done that the last month of the season. If we would have cut this thing off at week 10 and that performance against Seattle, there was no question we've got our guy for a lot of people. You know where I am. He's the guy. Nothing's changed for me. But for a lot of people, he's done some damage the last 3 weeks to reverse some of the goodwill and equity he's built up over the first 10 weeks of the season with some of these performances. Obviously, throwing 3 pick sixes in each of the last 3 games doesn't help your cause at all. No matter how they happen or how they look, or the impact whether they have on the game or the game was already out of hand or whatever the case may be, it's just not a good look for Sam. And so he's going to have to play better. No ifs, ands, or buts. I expect him to play well against the Rams. I do. I truly expect them to score more than 20 points in this game. I do. And it'll be the first time since the Seattle Seahawks game. I expect them to put up resistance. I don't expect them to win. I don't expect them to look like they did prior to the bye. I'm being honest with you. I know a lot of you think this team sucks. They've given up. I think those things too. We're on the same page. Here's where I differ. I think they needed a mental break. They needed to get away. They got away. They came back. I don't expect them to be a better football team. I just expect them to be mentally sharper. That's it. They were making a lot of mental mistakes, a lot of mental errors that allowed things to happen to make these games less competitive than they already were going to be because of the talent discrepancy. I think you're going to see less mental mistakes, less mental errors because they're sharper, because they had that reprieve. And I think it's going to allow us to be more competitive. I just think we're just not good enough to beat the Rams or the 49ers. I think we can beat the Jets, though. I'm not moving off the spot. Yes, their defense is damn good and good enough to stifle our offense and suffocate it. And that very well may be what happens. But their offense sucks too. And our defense sucks, so it may not make their offense look like it sucks. Case in point, the Giants. Twice. Right? I get it. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, I digress. Great interview. Nothing new. But if you're looking for an hour's worth of Sam just shooting the shit, knock yourself out. In other news, yesterday, something weird happened. Danny Johnson was released. We didn't talk about it because I knew there had to be more to the story. So I wanted to wait. And I'm glad that I did, because everyone was like, what? Like, almost to the point where you're like, did something happen over this little break? Did Danny go out and do something embarrassing to the team and they just cut him before it came out? Like, why are we at this point of the season and you think it's okay to cut Danny Johnson? And we got our answer today. Washington claimed former Packers, Ravens corner Caillou Blue Kelly, who the Packers just recently cut, was drafted by the Ravens, I think 2-3 years ago, out of Stanford, off of waivers. And they were awarded the claim. And in order to get him onto the roster, they had to release a player. So they released Danny Johnson. Okay, I get it. Makes sense now. I don't really know what this does for you. And, I'm at the point now where I'm like, I don't need you making any alterations to the roster at this point. You're not going to be here. So guys that you guys like, doesn't really matter. All you're doing is bringing more guys here that we have to cut. However, long, athletic corner, young, what do you got to lose? Hell, I told you I want to see the young boys at the end of the season. At this point, they're going to play harder than the veterans are. So, I don't know if he's getting on the field. I doubt it. But what do you have to lose at this point? Nothing. So, that's why Danny Johnson was cut, because it didn't make any sense yesterday. Now it makes sense. Let's take a look at the injury report. There's really nothing here for me to go over. It wasn't out at the time of this recording, but we can kind of make sense of everything. Jamin Davis, we know he's out for the season. They officially put him on IR and promoted the defensive end prior to the active roster to take Jamin's spot for the remainder of the season. Curtis Hodges back. He's been dealing with that prior to the bye, so don't know if he was at practice or not. It really doesn't matter now, does it? Brian Robinson, hamstring, was on the side field today, which is a good sign. Doesn't mean he's going to play, right? But just him being out there, I think that's more of a sign that his season isn't done. Because to me, I was like, just shut him down for what? What are we bringing him back for? But he's having a career year, obviously, and I think he'd like to finish up strong. So we'll see what happens with him and his hamstring. We could see him maybe the Jets game is my guess. Or the 49ers game, excuse me. I don't think he'll be ready for next week's game against the Jets. I still find that hard to believe. If it's a significant hamstring injury. He's at 2 weeks now, right? But still don't think he'll be ready. James Smith-Williams, I think he's got to be getting close, because his injury, I think, was sustained against the Giants. So he's had quite a bit of time. But again, I don't know the severity of the hamstring injury. So Tyler Larson, knee, I expect him to play. Sadiq Charles, calf, again, his 21-day window started yesterday. They opened that up. I expect him to take Chris Paul's spot back on the offensive line. And Emmanuel Forbes, we know he's going to play as well. So again, we can kind of predict what's going on here with most of this injury report. As we go to the Rams, I already told you I don't think Tutu Atwell's going to play. That was a pretty significant spill he took on Sunday against the Ravens. Rob Havenstein, groin, didn't practice yesterday. We'll take a look at him because he's a pretty big piece of that offensive line at their right tackle position. Tyler Higbee, neck, limited. I expect him to play. Same with Michael Hoyt, knee, limited. Ben Skoranek, limited with an ankle. And Quentin Lake, hamstring, full participant. So, again, the only two guys I'm really looking at and saying, hey, maybe they don't go is Tutu Atwell and Rob Havenstein. And Tutu Atwell is the one guy that can take the top off the defense for the Rams, but if you haven't been paying attention, Puka Nacua is getting behind defenses these days too, right? So, what's crazy is he's already got 1,100 yards receiving this year as a rookie. You probably could take Terry, Curtis, and Jahan's numbers, combine them, and you probably wouldn't get 1,100 yards. That's my guess. I could be wrong about that. Terry's got to be in that 6 going on 700 range. Curtis is probably in that 300, 400 range. I might be underselling Curtis a little bit, but I think he's probably in that 400 range. That's 1,100 yards right there. And then Jahan's probably way behind. If he's at 300 yards, that's a blessing with the way this season has gone for him. But I've just said all of that to make the point that Puka Nacua is killing it. And we're over here struggling with guys that we think are probably way more talented than Puka Nacua. It's crazy. But I digress. Let's go behind enemy lines, shall we? And the Commanders are 6.5-point underdogs on the road at the Rams on Sunday. 4:05 is the kick time for that game. I'm glad to be playing inside, so we don't have to deal with the elements. I'm kind of sick of those type of games this season. We've been in so many of them, most of them at home, I may add. The Arizona Cardinals game was nasty in week 1. The Bills game in week 3 was nasty. The game against the Dolphins here recently in week 13 was nasty. I'm just sick of dealing with those nasty weather games. The Seattle game wasn't necessarily nasty, but it was wet. It's always wet in Seattle. So it's just nice to be inside sometimes. The Atlanta game was fun because it was clean. It was nice. The game against Dallas was clean. It was nice. It was inside. And we played well for 3 quarters. I just give us a look. We're not good enough to deal with the elements too, is essentially what I'm getting at. It'll be nice to get away from the elements, get inside and see what the team can do on a surface and a playing field that is going to be neutral for both teams, essentially. We're going to have a ton of fans out there. We travel well. The Rams don't have a distinct home field advantage. And so it'll almost feel like a neutral field. And I expect us to perform well. I've already told you that. But here's the problem that I have with us in this game and with us in general is that we just don't do the little things correct in terms of scouting the opponent, understanding what that means, taking away what the other team does really well. I just told you Puka Nacua has over 1,100 yards receiving, and he's probably still going to have 100 yards in this game. We know what Cooper Kupp is capable of. He had one of his best games of the season. Remember, he missed the first 4 games of the season this year, and he had one of his better games against the Ravens, and we're going to act as if we didn't know who Cooper Kupp is and what his resume looks like. Aaron Donald was held relatively quiet last week because they doubled, tripled, and quadruple teamed him on every snap. We're going to give him some one-on-one matchups. Sadiq Charles is back. Yay! Let's give him a one-on-one with Aaron Donald and see what happens. You know, I wouldn't mind seeing what Sam Cosmi does one-on-one with Aaron Donald, but guess what? I don't want Sam Cosmi to be one-on-one. I wouldn't mind seeing that to see how he holds up, because if we think he's as good as we would like him to be, then he should be able to hold up on, not 10 straight snaps of one-on-one with Aaron Donald. Yeah, you're going to lose, 2, 3, 4 of those. But if they leave him by himself on 1 or 2 snaps, Sam should be able to hold up, right? But let's not get carried away and have Sam blocking him or Sadiq blocking him by him. Let's just make sure we're double teaming this dude at all times. They're not going to do that, right? And I told you, we don't get pressure on the quarterback. Sam and Matthew Stafford, he was playing really well last week, and he has been playing really well. And then Kyren Williams, as I mentioned yesterday, he's on a tear right now. He arguably is their most valuable player on offense. Since he's returned from injury, they've been a different offense. They've been a different football team. And so when I watch them, everything goes through Kyren Williams. As a matter of fact, their first 9 offensive snaps against Baltimore, and they were in succession, so they all happened on the first possession of the game. All runs to Kyren Williams. 9 straight carries. Could you imagine us doing something like that? Could you imagine us giving the ball to B-Rob 9 times in a row? I know you can't, because it's a miracle when he gets it 3 or 4 times in a row, let alone 9. Now, Kyren Williams didn't get all 9 of those carries. I think he had like 7 of them. They had a backup running back. Royce Freeman came in and got 2 of the carries. But still, to run it 9 times in a row to start a game, are you kidding me? Like, that is so absurd in today's NFL. And for us, That's impossible. But that's the type of shit the Rams are on right now. And if you can't stop Kyren Williams, if you can't slow down their run game, you have no shot at beating the Rams. None. So it starts there. Like, we know the secondary is trash, but if you can't stop the run, the secondary definitely doesn't have a shot. Because now play action fake is definitely working. You're definitely sucking up those linebackers, and that window, which we know Sean McVay loves to abuse, is wide open behind the linebackers. That second window on that dig route, that deep over route is wide open, and they're going to eat our ass alive. You have to stop the run first against these Rams. And if you don't, you're in for a world of trouble. The biggest thing that I can say is you just have to keep everything in front of you. You can't let Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp get you on a double move and get behind you and give up an explosive play, which is our calling card. No one gives up the big play quite like the Commanders do. We're the best in the business at giving up the big play and creating shorter fields for the offense, or just giving up a touchdown altogether, like we did against the Dolphins with Tyreek Hill twice. Like, we have to be more disciplined and just make teams, and we used to kill Jack for this. Jack wasn't super aggressive. He didn't blitz a lot. He kept everything in front of him and as a defense, and it forced teams to have to drive the length of the field. And while that's boring and you hate bend but don't break, it's effective if you do it correctly. We just haven't done it correctly this year. That's the problem, is we bend and then we eventually broke. And like, if you can't bend but don't break, but you also in the same breath can't stop giving up big plays, then what are you doing defensively? What are you good for? I just know this week, this will be the stiffest run test we've seen probably since week 4 when we played the Eagles and you had DeAndre Swift coming off of 2 massive games in a row. And at that time, he was leading the NFL in rushing. Because I don't think you see a lot of teams dedicated to running the football in today's NFL. And we really haven't played a lot of run-heavy teams. Like last year, we played a bunch of run-heavy teams. We played Tennessee. We played Cleveland. We played teams that we knew, hey, bro, if you don't come with your hard hat and your lunch pail, you're going to get embarrassed and emasculated on the ground because they're going to run it. That's not the case this year. We haven't played a lot of those teams. We're playing one on Sunday. The Rams have made a concerted effort to run the football, and if we don't slow Kyren Williams down, it's going to get ugly. Bubba Sparks style. It's going to get ugly. In here. Oh, in here. Oh, in here. Oh. I truly believe this, and I told you that at the top of the show. We're going to be competitive in this game. I think you're going to see a mentally sharper Washington team. We're not playing some ridiculous outfit. We're not playing the Dolphins. We're not playing the Cowboys. We're playing the Rams. They're 6-7 for a reason. Now, they're playing much better football, but they're still the Rams. All right? So it's not like they're going to just absolutely show up and blow us out. I think eventually they will get away from us and win this game comfortably, but it'll be on some 33-20 type shit. I don't think it's going to be, 43-13 like the last 2 weeks have been where we've played games. But I think this will be, 26-20 game, early stages of the, fourth quarter rather, maybe 23-20, and then the Rams score 10 unanswered points, run away and hide, or the 26-20, and then they score a touchdown and put it out of reach, and then we just don't have enough juice late to make it, interesting. Something to that effect. But I expect us to be competitive in this game. I do. I expect Sam to play better. I expect this team to perform at a much higher level, and I just don't expect us to get the win because I just don't think we're good enough. But we'll see. I've pretty much given you my prediction for the game. I mean, that's how I feel. So I guess I could regurgitate that tomorrow, or I could do something different tomorrow. But that's how I feel. You tell me. What do you think is going to happen? Other than we're going to get killed on Sunday. We suck. I know that. But leave it down in the comment section anyway. Slow down Aaron Donald. Double, triple team him if need be. Keep your eyes on Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua at all times. And you have to slow down Kyron Williams. If you can't do that, Matt Stafford is going to, Matthew, his mama named him Matthew, I'm going to call him Matthew. Matthew Stafford is going to have a field day if we don't stop the run. Anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys in the future. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Take care.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's gone.